When I was in the halls of residence in the first year of university, the house where I lived had an important daily ritual. And everything about our day was orientated towards making sure that this ritual was fulfilled. Whatever we did, whatever subjects we did, whatever extracurricular activities we did, we would all make sure that we'd come back to the house and we'd all gather together in the afternoon to sit down and to watch Channel 4's Countdown. I find words really fascinating. I love exploring the history of words, how words change and develop. On Countdown, I don't know about you, but I particularly enjoy listening to Susie Dent's section on the origins of words and phrases. And so as I reflected upon today's gospel, there's a particular word within the gospel in the original Greek language which I found myself being drawn to. And I found myself being drawn to it because it was a quirky word, first of all. But actually it's an interesting sounding word and conveys quite a huge depth of meaning when we begin to do a Susie Dent and unpack some of the meaning of this word. The Greek word that I'm referring to in the gospel is the word apasynagogus. I told you it was a quirky word, a quirky sounding word, might appear on a quiz. Apasynagogus. You know that by how it sounds that it's going to be quite interesting. It's going to be an interesting word. We understand this word to mean to be put out of the synagogue. To be put out of the synagogue. It comes from the middle of that rather long gospel that we've just heard, when the Jews were struggling to believe that the man who had been born blind had actually received his sight. So what do? They go and ask his parents, go to mum and dad. Now we hear how the response of the parents was rather strange, was rather aloof, if you like, very non-committal. They clearly didn't want to get involved with what was being unfolded here. And because they were afraid that they would be put out of the synagogue, apasynagogus. In other words, they were afraid that they would be cut off, excommunicated, if you like. Not only just spiritually, banned from coming to the services, but also cut off from the whole of the Jewish society. It was a big thing. And you really do get a sense of this, don't you? The fact that they would become outcasts. And that was a real concern for them. And we get that sense in the gospel. So they pass the buck back to their son. They say, well, he's of age, go and ask him. Keep us out of it. The fear is absolutely real here, isn't it? Many people at the time assumed that suffering or a disability of one kind or another must be the result of sin. Something's gone wrong. Either the person's own sin from earlier on in their life, perhaps, or from the sins of their parents. This is why they feared becoming outcast so much, feared of being rejected and cut off from their own community, excommunicated from society. Because becoming that outcast meant no support, no connections, no family, no hope. And yet Jesus does tell them from the very beginning of their conversation, from the very start of the gospel, he makes it clear to them. He said that this isn't the case. Listen to the words of the gospel again. Have a look on the newsletters. He says, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him." That's important. We'll come back to that again. Jesus shows us something interesting and profound. That human dignity comes before disability. That this man is someone who is loved unconditionally by God. He's not merely a blind man. Beyond the healing of the blind man, then, we see a restoration of his innate dignity. We see that he is not defined by his blindness, but rather that the works of God might be displayed in him. And that's important. This then, that moment, becomes a huge moment of revelation for him. And so slowly but surely, even through the interrogations that take place, the challenges he receives by people, he begins to see and to recognize how the works of God might be displayed in him. The receiving of his physical sight was something at one level, but now something else takes place at a deeper level. That illumination of sight through the eyes of faith leads him to utter the great acclamation of faith, "Lord, I believe." How many of us get caught up in this loop of destruction, finding ourselves being defined by our limitations and our weaknesses, our own personal blindnesses perhaps? It's very easy for us to begin to believe that the worst thing about ourselves must be the truest thing, that the thing that everything else then becomes measured by. We begin to think and to believe the narrative that must be just who I am. I'm just the one who fails. I'm the one who struggles. And we sort of move ourselves out of the community. I have nothing to offer. That apasynagogus becomes real for us. The wall goes up. The Lord prompts us to look beyond what's at the surface. We are not defined by our limitations either. God has a unique plan for us. He longs to show through us how the works of God might be displayed. He offers us the opportunity to build up his kingdom, to encourage those we meet, our families, our friends, to allow the eyes of their soul to be opened and for them to recognize him, for them to be able to say themselves through their own acts of faith, "Lord, I believe." Amen.